pressure cut that leg. Punch and cut, same deal. And you can see how that flows together very easily. Simply stopping it, using the fist on the punch and cut here. This tracks to collect the elbow. Pressure cut as I pull that in, using the armpit to hang on. And I'm immediately powered for that shot to the leg. From that cut, I continue to simply walk through and drop him down. Again, that leg's not supporting weight anymore. That's what's going to take him down. Continue to monitor the arm and take off to safety. Safe escape is always your ultimate goal. Let's take a look at low angle 5. Again, our progression here has been from angle 1, very common attack, gross motor skill, something common on the street. Angle 3, also very common regardless of the weapon you're running into. And then low angle 5, screwdrivers, knives, anything coming right up center line. These are the most common things you run into. If you prepare for what's most likely to happen, when something happens, you're most likely to be prepared. Also, from our learning methodology, we're building on stuff we already know. So for the angle 3, we knew we could do a cruzada. Well, if we're in the middle of a cruzada, angle 3, angle 5, angle 3, angle 5, which is it? Both. Okay? So he thrusts, bang, cruzada that through. Looking at the back of his tricep, cut, check, drive this through here, and cut the leg. Again, why do different stuff when what you have already works so well? So he thrusts. What did I do differently there? Instead of checking with the back of the arm, I use the hand. Which one's right? Both of them. Again, remember you want to have both those in your skill set. In this case, when the 5 comes in and I cruzada this allows me to do this quicker to create the opportunity to go to that leg. Practice it both ways, figure out which one works best for you. We can also take that cruzada and stutter the motion. So instead of staying in front of that, especially if he's got a longer weapon and we're concerned that we're going to be able to knock that aside with the left hand, it may be that we just decide to angle our body a little bit, pull this hip back, and clear this line of fire here. So when he thrusts, I want to make sure I get out of the way of that. That's also winding the spring now to really cook off with power on that tricep. So even if he's got a jacket on, if I'm swinging with full power at that range, I'm going to cut deeply and I'm going to have some really powerful effect. So he thrusts, bang, cut, come back and pick that up again, and then finish with that shot to the leg. One more time. That's a stuttered cruzada or split cruzada, basically separating the motions of the simultaneous cruzada movement. Next up, we have low line hubud. Low line hubud, we're going left, right, same way we do on high line, but everything's going to be fingers down. This goes back again all the way to volume 1 of this series. So Vince thrusts, left, right. Again, the left is speed, the right is going to be the real wedging structure that's going to give us that strength. One more time, please. Bang. Notice where my knife is pointed, right at its next target. So I make sure I monitor this elbow, power through that. If I want to come back and pick up that tricep, I can. Again. And I can also take the mobility kill again on that leg. If he's not down yet, I make sure, because I know that that is the most critical, most important thing I can do to keep myself safe. If I can kill his mobility, drop him in place, create distance, I can create safety. And finally, we've got Pala-Suit. With Pala-Suit, when we think about it, we first learned it starting with angle 1, taking it through angle 3, down to angle 5. Curiously, that's the same progression of knowledge that we're presenting now. Angle 1, angle 3, angle 5. So we look at the bottom of that motion, that's the functional part we're looking at. So he thrusts, simply hammer that down to deflect that thrust. Lift the elbow, cut. Again, I can pick up that tricep and come back and take the leg again. Again, he thrusts. Now with this, whenever we're doing Pala-Suit, just like we did with angle 1 and with angle 3, if that armpit is accessible, that becomes an option as well. So he thrusts. You can see the thrust going right into the armpit there. Very quick. Hammer this down, lift the elbow, thrust into the armpit, and then power through that leg. Super, super quick. A lot of people say, this is too complicated. You can't pull all that stuff off. What did that take? A second? And I wasn't even going full speed there. Again, the training, the practice, the understanding, and the building on a solid knowledge base is what really allows you to develop good, solid technique and to have the confidence to use it when you need it. Now let's take a look at angle 2. Again, our progression so far has been really focusing on the critical skills of the system, the learning methodology as it applies from angle 1 to 3 to 5. Now we start looking at the backhand side. Now, as we referenced earlier in the series, we've talked about the idea of all 4 defensive responses applying to all 4 zones, and they certainly do. But not all of them will give you a conclusive solution to your problem. Just to revisit that point, let's say we get an angle 2 and I decide I'm going to do a follow on the angle 2. I may cut those flexor tendons, may get that weapon to drop, but once I've done that, there is no handy way to finish this fight and achieve that mobility kill. So basically what I've got is that single cut. I could also look at it as this comes in, follow here, maybe rake across the eyes, and just look at that motion of 1, 2, or 1, 4 type of thing, which we're already very familiar with because that's an element of our master technique as well. But again, there is no magic way to turn that into a technique. If we try doing that, it becomes contrived at that point. We get away from the real strength of MBC, which is to do things that make sense and finish the fight and stop people. So what we're going to do here is we're going to focus on what we really consider to be the go-to moves for angle 2. Again, you can review what we did as far as the conceptual applications of everything. Go back and take a look at that. Let's focus on the real hardcore application that gives us a way of finishing this fight. Our primary application is going to be the meat. So the angle 2 comes in, we cut and check with the meat. So I'm cutting, checking, making sure I stop that arm. Once I've got this, step forward and drive. As I drive, I'm also looking at prepping that cut. And again, as I go, you notice in that case, my drive was pretty successful. I was getting Eric off balance. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Let's take a look at that. We got the meat here. I'm stepping and driving. If I'm not getting good access to this leg, is there anything that says that I can't step a little further and start finding other targets? If I happen to foot trap him here and I decide I'm going to take a sciatic because that leg happens to be accessible instead of the quad on the other leg, is that okay? If I cut the sciatic, I take his mobility, I still achieve what I'm looking at. Again, in your training, you want to experiment with that stuff and look for when those things happen. Don't say, oh, the technique didn't work, or hey, let's do it again. Work your way through it. Figure out what you can do if that happens on the street. Based on that experience, you'll have the ability to adapt. Now, when it comes to the meat, we also looked at the idea that from here, this is a continuum of motion. I can extend, I can basically retract this back to here. So if I see that chambered, as you get more and more into this and you see somebody doing this, it's no longer a mystery what's going to happen. You know it's going to be an angle 2. So I see here at chamber, I cut and check, and I work that leg. Again, critics sometimes say, there's too much stuff going on. You could never pull that off in a fight. He chambers, cut, check, work the leg. It's not that hard. And you can pull it off pretty quickly if you get off the couch and train. Now, one thing we haven't looked at as far as the meat is concerned is the idea of meeting with 2 hands, blocking with the knife hand as well as the live hand. The reason you would do this is because sometimes Darwin looms large. Instinct kicks in. The startle response or the flinch response is typically this type of thing. Your hands fly up, you face whatever the threat is, you kind of turtle up, your head comes down, shoulders come up, you bend your knees. It's a natural instinct. We always want to accept that instinct and try to build technique on it. So if that happens, we know what to do from there. So if an angle 2 is coming in, the idea of simply covering, blocking with the back of my knife arm, checking with my left palm, and now from here, all I have to do is drive this down and look for that cut to the bicep. So I'm literally pushing with both arms. I power cut across that, come back, pick up that tricep, and then work the leg. Again, this comes in, bang. From here, I push, and notice how the blade comes right over my hand into the bicep here, trapping this against Eric's body, and then pressure cutting across, come back and pick that up and create the opportunity for the cut here. So if we put that together fluidly, just like that. So that's your two-hand meet. Again, sometimes instinct looms large. Just take it, run with it from there. Now with the two-hand meet, one of the other things to consider is that you may initially do that startle response, and then you realize, you know what, I can still turn this into a more valid technique, a more picture-perfect technique, if you will. Doesn't make it necessarily any more functional, but it allows you to go back to something you already know and kind of, again, know how to lower your standards. So if that angle 2 came in and I did this, I'm just doing the startle response here. Then I realize, oh, what I should be doing is a meet. So I simply draw down, get my draw cut as I drive with this, step this forward, and again, I finish with the low line. So it may start off as kind of a cluster with, yikes, now I simply rotate and turn that into the meet, step forward, and finish the technique. So even if your initial response is imperfect, doesn't mean you can't unscrew it and then finish on better terms. The final thing we're going to look at as far as the angle 2 is our push-pull cruciata. This comes right out of the Sombrata drill. We also see this in the speed drill. We see that in some other drills, but it's the idea of pushing primarily with this hand and pushing the arm into the cutting edge of the knife. Again, all we have to do to create that motion is to think about looking at the puño of the knife. Look at the butt of the knife, turn it back toward you, and drop your elbow down a little bit. You don't have to necessarily change your grip to pull this off. So the angle 2 comes in. Notice how the push drove his arm into the cutting edge. Bang. What that also does is it pushes his arm away to put his tricep in a beautiful position for me to follow up. Cutting straight down that way, make sure that doesn't come back, and achieve the mobility kill. Again. Now when you look at that, that push-pull followed by the downward comes straight out of the Sombrata drill. So when you look at the applications as far as angle 2 is concerned, you want to stay to the outside if at all possible. We'll throw in one more just for the heck of it and just to refresh your memory, and again take us all the way back to the beginning of the series. Angle 2 comes in, let's say we do the meet here. We've got the meet. What if he goes low, or what if I choose to take him to this side of my body? I pass this through. Now I've got the position here for the pressure cut and the cut across the quad. So what I've got is the backup just in case he decides to go low. From a conscious standpoint, would I want to necessarily do this? Probably not. But understanding that that is there, being able to ride that motion becomes very important as well. You get that right out of the outside-outside drill. Look at all the drills, look at the applications, relate them to each other. If you're having trouble with a specific application, go back and find the drill that allows you to isolate and tune up that skill set. Then take those reflexes, put it back into your practice of the applications, and you find you're even more effective. Angle 4 conceptually borrows a lot from angle 2. Again, we're on the backhand side, we're on the outside, and we want to stay on the outside. And also, as we had talked about earlier, there are elements of angle 4 where you can take defensive responses and say, yes, conceptually these apply. But do they provide you an opportunity to actually finish the fight and achieve a mobility kill? No. So the same things apply there. We're going to focus primarily on the ones that allow you a clean finish, a way of actually finishing the fight. The other stuff is there, play with it, train it, but know its limitations. So we look at the angle 4, first thing we learned was a meet. So the angle 4 comes in, we cut and check. So I'm turning my entire body, hips and shoulders together. I'm checking the back of the elbow, cutting this arm here. Now from here I've got two options. One is I kind of pitch this and drive it that way, or I step forward and drive and create an opportunity for that tricep cut. So what I've got here, bang, is come down this way. This is nice because again, when you look at performing something at speed, the angle 4 comes in, I cut. Very quick as far as being able to get that in. Once I've done that, I still need to get my mobility kill. So now I can really make sure that arm doesn't come back. I drive in, I prep this, make sure I have a good juicy leg to work with here, and then I get my mobility kill to finish the fight there. So we get again is nice flow. That initial part, again, you can see where we get lather, rinse, repeat as far as rotating and coming right back. Tricep cut, could come back and take the eyes if I felt it was justified. Again, in training, make sure you wear proper protection when you train with your partner. That was the initial version we learned, which was checking with the palm. We can also check with the back of the arm and have a larger surface area that's more forgiving. So the angle 4 comes in, bang, cut and check here. From here, what I'd probably do is want to drive forward and then work that leg. The reason, I'm closer to him. If I'm here and I let this go to try to get this cut, he can be coming and closing on me very easily. So when you're doing this with the back of the arm, what you're going to find is it makes more sense just to go big and drive. So as he comes in here, I'm making sure that I get this. Notice that I keep my elbow stuck to his ribs too. Go ahead and come back and get me, Vince. Not much going on as far as he's concerned. I've got a really good, strong structure here by keeping my elbow to his ribs. Again, that gives me the opportunity, bang, to come here. Now, one question that often comes up here is, well, why doesn't he just take that swing and hit you while you're going? That's another reason we have 30 degrees this way, 30 degrees this way. We'll go through it slowly so we can see it. Bang, here's the initial motion. I'm driving 30 degrees. Okay, now I'm cutting his leg, take that swing. By the time he takes that swing, I'm halfway home. That's why I'm walking past him at that 30-degree angle. A lot of people think that fighting is all about 45s. If I step out at a 45, I'm soon going to be in perfect range for him to hit me. By staying closer to him on that 30-degree angle, he has to reach behind himself to get to me. Probably ain't going to happen. So cutting that tight angle is just enough for me to get past his leg, to cut with plenty of power, not to step too wide to where I dissipate the power by letting my arm stick out too far. And I'm also safer because I'm cutting a tighter line that he can't really reach as far as being able to swing at me. So that's the one-hand meet, or the traditional style of meet where we're checking with one hand, either the palm or the back of the arm. Just as we had a two-hand meet for the angle 2, there's also a two-hand meet for the angle 4, which we haven't looked at yet, so let's take a look at it in detail. Basically, we're looking at same concept. I'm checking here, but I'm also checking with the back of this arm. So this can be kind of a startle response. Somebody swinging low, bang, just throwing both arms down to try to get that thing to stop. So this is blocking here. If you need something to relate it to, if you think of Pala suit, coming down, blocking with the back of the arm, this checking the elbow here, that's basically the structure you're looking for. Why do we do this rather than this? Back of the arm is important because if he draw cuts, if he does have an edge weapon, damage control. If I get too used to doing this, he now gets juicy stuff. So looking at really trying to emphasize the back of the arm instead is a good thing. What that does is it also gets my knife point facing right toward the target that I'm looking for. So he throws the angle 4, bang, whack. You can see how quickly I can go right at that leg. So from the block here, I can stick, cut, come back and pick up that tricep if I need to, come back and pick up the leg again if I need to. Super, super quick, bang. Right here, there's my cut, tricep again, and power through if I didn't finish the job the first time. So that becomes super, super quick. If I'm in that position, again, we relate it to what we already know. What do we do against the low angle 5? Once I did this, I said, hey, there's an armpit there. There's still an armpit there, and it's perfectly accessible because I've got the same arm position. Reference points. How quick is that? Now, take that leg. So as far as debilitating that arm, even though I'm blocking with both arms and not really debilitating it, that shot straight into the armpit, very quick. Wham. Again, be careful with your partner. You can see shoving that up there, really going to have an effect on him. And then, wham, plow through that leg. One more time. Very quick. Now finally what we have is, for lack of a better term, a two-hand follow. If we go back to what we learned from outside-outside drill, if an angle 2 were coming, we would pass this all the way through to this side, collect it here, cut, and then cut. That became the application for that passing aspect of the live hand. We start here, angle 2, we pass through angle 4. Again, think about your reference points. If we're in zone 4 here, could I start there? You bet. So now when that angle 4 comes in, I cut and I simply sweep that around to this position, cut again, and then take the leg. Let's do-si-do and show that from this side. So the 4 comes in, I cut and I slap this down, bring this right around here. You can see the pressure I'm applying on Vince's arm here. Pressure cut this and cut the quad. Again, slowly, cut, cut, cut. A little more fluidly. You can see that comes together very easily. And again, we're taking component parts of what we already know. Passing drill takes us down to here. If we simply start here with both hands coming down, which again is a very natural motion of bang, just slap the hands down. Whatever cut I get here, that's fine. Pass it through, collect this to my chest, have this hand up and ready to cut here, and then work the leg. One final bit to add to that, we always believe in backups. An important backup to have here, especially if you've seen CBC, you've seen passing drill. If you haven't seen that, you know that we can pass live hand, or we can pala-suit weapon hand. So let's say that angle 4 comes, I do this, and I'm not quick enough here, and he's coming up at my neck here. That's where this hand being prepped to cut here realizes, hey, time to jump in, pala-suit this back, maybe work that armpit, work here. So again, he comes angle 4. I'm not quick enough to control this. Stop that with the pala-suit. Shove that armpit here, work that leg. Be able to connect the pieces. Look at the weaknesses in your technique. If something comes apart in training, what you're going to find 9 times out of 10, you already have the tools to solve that problem. It's a matter of being open-minded enough, finding those reference points, and being able to use those to fuel your own study of it. As you get more and more into MBC, what you're going to realize, it's a very complete system. All the component parts are there. You just need to figure out how they fit together. Let's take a look at the speed stops for the high angle 5. In this case, we'll be borrowing some elements of angle 1, some elements of angle 2. Again, reviewing what we already know and seeing how we have lots of common ground with regard to the concepts and the reference points. If we look at high angle 5, whether he's thrusting in this way or coming down this way, doesn't really matter. What we've got is something that when we put it in the middle of a cruzada looks very much like a cruzada for an angle 1. If it fits in there, it's going to work the same way. So the thrust comes in, boom. There's my cruzada. I see that reference point, cut and check that tricep, and work the leg. Not rocket science. Pretty easy. What we can do simultaneously, we can also stutter and offset. So if that thrust comes in, it may be that my immediate response is to slap that aside. Very instinctive action, something we share with the cruzada. We have that as part of Puño Sembrada. It exists in a lot of different motions. When we do that, that also is going to wind up this spring ready to cook off right here. So again, the thrust comes in, parry that, cut here.